You're listening to the Friends Talking Nerdy Podcast Network.
Friends Talking Nerdy. If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends Talking Nerdy.
So, Professor Aubrey here, fucking cats. Alright, sorry about that little hiccup in the recording here, folks, but that little tidbit that we just recorded. What was pretty funny, we had another cat incident.
Yes, we did. So the cats like to go in doors that are not open. So they like to go in the laundry room doors. They like to go in the closet doors. And we keep the bedroom and the bathroom closed off as well. So they like to go in those doors. Annie keeps getting locked in places. And she still keeps going in doors that don't get open very much. She runs into them.
I mean, to me, as always, I mean, like I've said before, to me, the whole purpose is to make sure that they accept the fact that it's not necessarily their space, you know, because, I mean, you've had them in the bedroom plenty of times, I've had them in the bedroom plenty of times, but what we just had right now was Annie somehow got the dress, there's a closet. There's the word. The closet right next to us where we're recording here, and Annie somehow got the door open. I mean, I suspect with the number of bags that are on that doorknob, maybe it's just a matter of reaching up over time and making it to where the door unintentionally opened. But Annie was just like walking in like, whoa, like she just walked into like King Solomon's Mines or something like that. And then Mimsy was looking at me like, hey, did you see what she did? You know?
They're very cute. They're both very, very cute cats.
Yeah, and I mean, they can frustrate you. I mean, any cat will frustrate you, but if you accept them as cats and not try to mold them into what you think a cat should be, then I think everybody's going to end up happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my girls are happy, too. Happy enough to take a shit while we record. So.
That's comfort, people.
Yeah, speaking of shit, you actually got to see a piece of videotape history.
Yes, I did.
My nationwide television debut.
That's right. I'm not sure if I saw you.
You did. I pointed it out, remember?
I know, but I didn't see you.
It was because of the lighting. Yeah, you couldn't, see my face and, with hair.
Right.
So going, oh my God. But, I knew exactly what I was doing because what I'm referring to, folks, is the May 22nd, 2000 episode of Monday Nitro. That was the first professional wrestling television live taping that I had ever been to. And I showed it to the professor because we had recently watched an episode of the latest season of Dark Side of the Ring about an event that happened during this time in WCW a couple months after this at Bash the Beach 2000, and I wanted to show her just what a Vince Russo wrestling show is like.
Yeah, it was pretty wild with the Vince Russo.
Yeah, for folks out there that aren't wrestling fans, for folks that are not wrestling fans, Vince Russo got his career started in wrestling working as a writer on the WWF magazine. During that time, he was writing some provocative stuff that got the attention of Vince McMahon, and at the time, the WWF's popularity was in number 2 over WCW over them, so McMahon went with a content change, and Vince Russo was the creative force behind that. And it got to the point, to where they ended up becoming the number 1 company, and then Vince McMahon made a deal with a new network called UPN to make Thursday Night SmackDown. And he expected Vince Russo to write that show too without a bump in pay. And so Vince Russo ended up quitting and going to the competitor WCW, which had switched to second place because their popularity was on the wane. And he's a unique guy. I mean, he's not as bad as some of his critics say, but he's not as good as he thinks he is.
Sure.
As a creative force. And basically what he did is he took the suspension of disbelief you have as a wrestling fan and flushed it down the toilet. Because he would do a lot of this stupid stuff in the ring. Like, every match had to be a gimmick match. It wasn't just one-on-one or tag teams or anything like that. Like, the first match at the show was Ernest the Cat Miller versus Booker T in a martial arts weapons match. I mean, Ernest Miller, legitimately outside, used to be a karate instructor, was a karate instructor to Eric Bischoff's kids, which is how he got his start in wrestling. So there is at least some logic there that one of the competitors would know how to do it. But, I mean, like, one of the nunchucks broke the moment he flipped it, and the audience laughed.
Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah, for all the wrong reasons. And what he would commonly do, too, during the storylines, which I think was the absolute worst fucking idea in the world, and I have no problem using that harsh language there, he would constantly do this whole thing of pointing out that the show was written. That's not in the script. It's in the script, talking about the script. And then he would have the performer say, well, I'm going off the script now. It's like, no, you're not. It's like, no, you're not. You're all... It's like the suspension of disbelief was just gone. He expected people to believe that it was real and then not real and then real at the same time.
Right.
And... You know, I mean, excuse me, I'm sure you could probably find, think of some examples, like, obviously this didn't happen, but, if, like, Mark Hamill in the middle of a Star Wars, stopped, hey, George, what time is it? And they left that in the film, that would take you out. You wouldn't enjoy Star Wars if they, just constantly cut to stuff like that. And it was literally the equivalent of doing that. I mean, this was also the era where, the actor David Arquette?
Yeah.
He won the WCW World Championship in 2000. He was world champion. Now, granted, the next week they had a very funny backstage promo with him and Courtney Cox. Courtney Cox was yelling because they were married at the time. Yeah. And she was like, "Oh my God, what are you doing? These guys are going to hurt you. They're going to hurt you." And then all of a sudden, Kurt Russell walks into frame, and David Arquette goes, "Hey, I'm the WCW champion." And then Kurt Russell just laughs and walks off the camera. I mean, it was worth it for that. And also, to be fair, David Arquette ended up donating all of his salary to the families of Owen Hart and Brian Pillman. So he didn't take a dime for what he did, even though he still gets some ridicule today for doing something he really didn't have a choice to do.
What do you mean he didn't have a choice?
He was essentially hired as an actor. There was a movie that WCW helped produce in '99 that debuted in early 2000 and just bombed, called Ready to Rumble. Which coincidentally enough had a cameo by pre-famed John Cena. Oh. Yeah, he was like in the background lifting weights when he, still had just very blonde hair and a military crew cut or something like that. But... And I wonder why I'm not gay. I don't know. But, you got a chance to see the worst wrestling ever put on television. And what was so painful about it, too, apart from me coughing right now, is the talent level they had. They had some legends.
Right. And so they were squandering the assets that they did have.
Yeah. Assets like time. Speaking of that, time is a great segue. I had my time wasted thanks to a unique dating experience a couple weeks back.
Oh, yeah? What happened?
Oh, boy. I go back and forth on wanting to use, like, dating apps, but, if you deal with anxiety like I do, it is a good way to get your foot in the door to where you at least know you have a shot. Right. Because, like, going up to a complete stranger, like, my big fear would be, I don't want to say something that could turn things sour and the good things that we have.
Right.
Like a coworker or something like that. Right. We're going to take another drink. Please cover.
Okay. Yeah, so I, have felt the same way, definitely with regard to a coworker. I can totally understand why you wouldn't want to, approach them. But, like, for me, I used to meet people in bars.
Yeah, I had a couple of years in my 20s where I was single, and I was never a bar person. I mean, I did go to a couple of, of the types of bars that do play both kinds of music.
Country and Western.
Yeah, with my dad, and ended up singing karaoke at one. And that was the place where... that was also the place, too, on a different occasion. I think it was on my birthday, where I had 7 Boilermakers.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
That's a lot of Boilermakers.
Yeah, for folks that don't know what that is, it's a shot of whiskey dropped in a glass of beer and you drink it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, man, so matched up with a woman on a dating app, and, one thing...
Which app was it?
Bumble.
Oh, Bumble.
Of all places. Yeah, and... matched up with a person, and for me on a dating app, what the first sign that something may be good may be good, even if it's just a friendship, is when you have instant rapport the moment you connect. Mm-hmm. There have been plenty of times where I've connected with somebody, and then it'll be like a text or two every couple of days, and it's just like, why? I mean, it's like if you're trying to light a campfire, it's a small little ember or something like that. It's just like, are you going to try that, or a different way to start a fire?
Right.
But matched with this person and pretty instant rapport, and it got to the point to where we talked about going out on a date, and we made it was when you were off on your camping trip earlier. So,
last weekend in July, then.
Yeah, so a couple weeks back, me with time, what day is it? But made an initial date for Thursday, but told her that hey, because of work, I don't have a firm get off of work time. I leave when the job is done. And explain to her, because when I call myself the podcast making, public transit taking, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing son of a gun, I'm serious about the public transit thing. I mean, I don't have a car by choice. I don't have like a flood of DUIs or anything like that. I just don't like to drive. And I live in the perfect town to be able to do that.
Sure.
So we made the initial date, and as it happened, I ended up working till 7:30 that night, and ended up getting home around 8 o'clock. I mean, a bus ride is like 20 minutes, and there's an additional 20 minutes or so walking to the bus stop. But walking after work, I love it. So ended up saying, hey, it's late, and you're coming from a far way away, so let's reschedule for Saturday. And then she got really upset, not like fuck you or anything like that. It's just, you can tell when with somebody's words, I guess, if they're affected by it more than, oh well, and it's like, I felt bad, but it's just like, I do feel I was pretty damn clear about this not being a 100% opportunity,
Mm-hmm. And if somebody is like disappointed in that happening before they've even met you,
yeah,
think about the pressure of what it is they would want from a regular partner,
Yeah, I mean, because to me, at the end of the day, and we were saying this off the air, like, I felt that if you hear every possible outcome and you make the decision to potentially go with it, if it can happen, then you can't really get upset if it doesn't. If you knew that there was a chance it could not happen. I'm not saying be disappointed. That's human nature. You're going to be disappointed because you're excited for something to happen. But if you accept the fact that it may not happen and it doesn't, you can't get mad.
No, you can't get mad if somebody has told you that might happen and you go into it anyway. Mm-hmm. Like, she could have said, no, that doesn't work for me. I need to have firm plans.
That would have been correct. That would have been the right thing to do, because ghosting is a thing, and if you've had that happen to you, it can sting, and especially if it's happened on a recent basis. Maybe you don't want to experience it if you don't have to. I get that, but again, I communicated clearly.
Right.
So, but
right. What surprised me was when you told me that you had blocked her after
Well, that's ahead of the story.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. We're getting there, folks. But no, so we had made, the backup plan was Saturday, and being that I had that day off anyway, it probably was the good thing. And then on Saturday in the afternoon, she texted me. She's like, "Hey, I'm at work right now. I'll be out at 6." It was either 6 or 6:30, but one of those times. And by the time I got that message, I was like, "Great." Looked at the clock. It was around 2:00, and I thought, why not take a nap? So I took a nap, set an alarm for 5:30, and woke up to that alarm because I realized, I may have been sounding like I was leading up to it. I slept through it and didn't go on the day. But
yeah, no.
But yeah, I was a good boy. I got up at 5:30, grabbed my phone, and saw 2 text messages. One was around 4:00 of her stating, "Hey, I'm done. I'm heading. I'll head your way. Just let me know." And then a half hour later, "Well, I haven't heard from you. I wish you well." And there was more to it. I'm paraphrasing there, but she did say, "I wish you well." And it's just like, what the fuck is this?
You're right.
It's like, again, we had texted. We didn't talk on the phone. So there's evidence that she wrote 6:30. It's like, could I have said, "Oh, I thought it was 6:30. Sure. But, maybe it's because I've been burned a lot, with bad experiences in relationships over the years that you said red flag earlier. It was a red flag. It was just like, this is going to lead to more problems. If this is this serious a situation now, why deal with it? So yeah, I blocked her.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I wish her well. If on the off chance she hears this, I'm not saying this as a personal attack or anything like that. I don't think I've said anything that could be really construed as that. I'm just telling you my perception of the events as they happened.
Gotcha.
So, but, god damn. Being alone with my cats, and one of the cats and Mimsy, poor Mimsy, we did get them some toys.
We did get them some toys. We got them a scratcher, and these were always the favorites of Sherman and Phil and Tilly and Miss Kitty, who are all cats that I've lived with recently. It's like a box, and it has a scratcher in it, and you put catnip on it, and the catnip collects in the bottom of the box so it doesn't get all over the place. And the scratchy, the debris from scratching also falls through. So it's like a way to keep it clean, even though the cats love to scratch on it.
Yeah, I mean, Annie has not been one to, so far, be really attracted to catnip, but she has taken to, sharpening her nails on that instead of the couch. I've noticed that they've done that less.
Oh, good.
I'm not promising never again. Hopefully this helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, this is Tim the Nerd here, joining me, as always, and you've already heard her beautiful voice. We have the greatest legal mind in the Pacific Northwest, Professor Aubrey. How you doing?
Hey, I'm really good. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing good. Now, since I shared a dating story, I think you got one, right?
Yeah, it's actually related to the first part of what you were talking about, which is wrestling, oddly enough. But I went on a date with a person I had seen once before, and really nice guy. And he and I were just chatting, and I was saying, people are interested in all kinds of things and have all kinds of hobbies. And so we were both like throwing out examples of like things that people are into. And I said, worldwide wrestling or professional wrestling. And he was like, "Oh my God, do you like professional wrestling?" And I was like, "Sure, I like to watch AEW." And he was like, "Oh my God, I watch AEW." And so I said, "Yeah, my favorite AEW person is Hikaru Shida." And he said, "Oh, cool." And then the next day, he texted me and said that she had won the championship the night before.
Yeah.
Which I thought was nice. And so it was just a funny coincidence that something I usually would never tell anybody about.
You came out of the wrestling closet.
Right? I came out of the wrestling closet with this guy, and he immediately came out of the wrestling closet with me, so...
There you go. There you go. And I think that is, unfortunately, the minority group of wrestling fans that make wrestling look bad are the ones that get the most attention. I think at the end of the day, wrestling has a vast array of people that are interested from all walks of life. It's not deep entertainment at all, but, it takes the passion of sports and adds the drama element to it. And, who doesn't like that? I mean, the regular sports take cues from the WWE anyway, in terms of, like, production, in terms of, presentation and all that stuff. So, wrestling, man, can bring people together.
Yeah.
It can.
It's like Plur.
Yeah. Now, I know what that is, but I want to know if you know what that is.
I know what it is. It's peace, love, unity.
That's right, from the Burning Man episode.
Right. We can't remember what the last thing is.
Yeah, respect.
Yes, peace, love, unity, respect.
Yeah, that was a guess, but...
No, I think that's right.
It fit with it, yeah. But that's another thing. You're going to be heading off to Burning Man here soon. So this week, as we record this, we're going to have a few episodes in the can. So we have fresh episodes through the end of August and into September.
That's right.
Yes, and usually we do try our best to theme everything. The theme this week is... the theme for this, essentially month of episodes is entertainment. Mm-hmm. Whether it be our usual Nerdy 5 stuff, which we're going to do here today with, our opinions of movie remakes, whether the original or the newer version was better. But, we're going to have some fun topics to talk about because topics like this create conversation. Any sort of top 10, top 20, whatever list, even if they have very stringent rules for how things get ranked, at the end of the day, unless we're talking like sports rankings or something like that, if it's rankings of movies, it's opinion.
Oh, yeah. Any kind of ranking is always opinion, except, I guess, like tournament style sports events.
Yeah, and that's a different thing altogether. I mean, because, that's in actual sport, people compete, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, like I mentioned, we put together our list of some of our favorite remakes. And as always, since we know we talk about this stuff on the show, as we record this, tomorrow will be the 6th anniversary of the very first recording of Friends Talking Nerdy.
Oh my God, congratulations.
Yeah, so, but... we've talked about a lot of stuff on this show over the years, so we do our best to, when we come up with lists like this, to add a little variety.
Right.
So we're not talking about like Star Wars every single episode.
Although it's worthy of being talked about every single episode.
Oh yeah. Don't get me wrong. But variety is the spice of life. But what we are going to do is go through our list here like we always do, go back and forth, have some conversation, and just chat about movies this week. Are you ready?
I am totally ready.
Did you want to start us off?
No, why don't you start us off?
Okay, I guess. Put me in my place. All right, this movie came out in 1999. Starred one Brendan Fraser, and was a remake of a 1932 Boris Karloff movie. We're talking about The Mummy. In terms of there's a lot I love about the original, and it's not fair to rank a movie in the very early years of Hollywood compared to a movie in the 90s when CGI was just blossoming. They're their own separate entities. But what I loved about this is that it took the Indiana Jones vibe and kind of did its own little weird, quirky thing with it. Mm-hmm. It's just like a swashbuckling affair. Brendan Fraser is a perfect leading man, and it's unfortunate that his career was, put in danger for as many years as it was for just such a horrific reason. He was sexually harassed and got blacklisted. But, this is one of those roles that, that people would always question, like, why is a guy from The Mummy not working today? Like, he should be in many more movies like this. Like, good-looking guy, great attitude, very nice guy. I mean, everybody's rooting for him. He's like up there in Keanu Reeves status right now in terms of how people really think about him as a person and all that. But The Mummy, a damn good adventure film.
Yeah, I remember seeing the newer version
With Tom Cruise.
with Tom Cruise, exactly. No, the Brendan Fraser one.
Oh, okay.
But I had never seen the original Boris Karloff one.
Yeah, it's been years since I've seen it, so don't question me about that particular one. But it's part of the Universal monster library, and every few years Universal tries to come up with ideas to try and revive them. In 2016, they did remake The Mummy again with Tom Cruise, but that was supposed to start. It was Universal trying to do their own Marvel thing by having something called the Dark Universe, to where they were going to unite, the Mummy, Dracula, Frankenstein, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, all into one movie universe where they all meet up or whatever. But much like Zack Snyder did with his DC movies, that worked for some people, didn't work for others. My critique one thing I didn't like was that he was planting seeds for movies that, if it were successful and got to that, were about 15 years away. And audiences, you will have your hardcore audience that will, have that passion for it through the entire 15 years and be waiting and expecting. But most people that go to see movies like this just want to be entertained that day.
Yeah.
Especially for that type of movie, because, like The Mummy is about a mummy that comes to life and starts attacking people at the end of the day. It's not War and Peace. It's not Les Miserables.
Right.
It's meant to be thrilling, and at the end of the day, you're cheering because the hero got the gal.
Yeah.
But if you haven't seen it, or you haven't seen it in a long time, watch it just so Brendan Fraser can get some more royalties, because he deserves it.
That's so sweet of you.
Yeah. Please make this man money and not me. We do have a Patreon, by the way, folks. So.
Yes, we do. Sign up for our Patreon.
Yes. What's your first choice?
So I actually have two Christmas ones that I'm going to start with. The first one is A Classic Tale by Charles Dickens of Victorian England, where a mean old grouchy guy named Mr. Scrooge and his trusty clerk, Bob Cratchit, embark on a drama about the meaning of Christmas.
Starring Jean-Claude Van Damme.
There are no explosions.
Yeah. So I haven't seen it.
And so it's been made, probably 100 times in different
more than I
permutations.
think it is, apart from Bible stories or Shakespeare, I think it's up there in the top 3 of most adapted stories.
I totally believe it. So I'm going with my favorite adaptation of Christmas Carol. If you hadn't guessed what it was yet. It's a Christmas Carol, and it's my favorite, and that is the Muppet Christmas Carol. I think it's from around 1990.
No, that happened after Henson passed away. It was late 90s.
Oh, okay, yeah, late 90s. Yeah, that makes sense. 97, maybe.
Because one of the reasons I didn't see it was, I was kind of territorial of Kermit. When Jim Henson passed away, like everybody, I was sad, and then they had a special on CBS. It was essentially a new episode of the Muppet Show, and they were all talking. All the characters were there except for Kermit, talking about Jim Henson and all that. And then at the very end, they introduced the new voice of Kermit, and I was sitting there like, that ain't Kermit. Fuck you. And it took me a long time to warm up to that actor. I mean, thankfully I did, because I think we talked about it within the past couple of episodes. The 2011 Muppet movie.
Yeah, great movie.
Same actor in that, and I think if anything that helped kind of when I first saw that movie, the way I described it to people was it felt like meeting up with a friend you hadn't seen in 30 years and picking right up where you left off.
Yeah.
And I guess I needed that before anything else. But go ahead, Muppet Christmas Carol.
Well, have you seen it since?
No.
Okay, well, we have to watch it this holiday season because it is so wonderful. and cute and has all the cute characters, and it's a very sweet story, of course. We know that Scrooge redeems himself in the end and saves the little boy's life.
And I should see that too, because I think that was, I believe, one of the last times that Frank Oz did Fozzie and Miss Piggy. So, yeah, I probably should at some point. Maybe we'll have a quiz show like No Chance in Hell. No, I'll see it voluntarily.
Yes.
All right, shall I go on with my next one? All right, I was 15 years old. I decided I was going to skip school. Being 6'1" at the time, I'm 6'5" now. I walked out those doors and nobody thought, I mean, if anything, they thought there's a young college student. So I took my high school bus pass, which got me on the bus for free, and went to Studio 28 and watched my first rated R movie.
Hey.
Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Ooh.
Yeah, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. From I'm sitting there thinking, who's the author? Who wrote it? Who wrote Bram Stoker's Dracula? but yeah, I'm glad I saw this. Am I going to say it's my favorite film of all time? No. Honestly, I do prefer the Bela Lugosi original, but it's a similar situation as the first one. You can't really compare the two. They're two different things. And, as a filmmaker, Francis Ford Coppola, even for a commercial property like this, is still going to do some amazing things. Like he ended up using special effects that were originally created for films in the 20s in terms of doing some of the stuff that he pulled off. Gary Oldman as Dracula was great. Keanu Reeves was in it, but this was the era to where for some reason Hollywood executives thought, let's cast Keanu Reeves in as many roles where he has to put on a foreign accent that we can. And he's not good at it. No, I mean...
This is right after he was the Chevalier in Dangerous Liaisons.
Dude. I've compared Keanu Reeves to, Clint Eastwood as an actor. I think for very specific roles, he's amazing. But, he's not Macbeth.
Right.
But Winona Ryder's in the movie. She plays Mina. If you see it for anything, Gary Oldman chews the scenery.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Gary Oldman.
When he gets real tall, remember that part? So good.
Yeah, but it's. I think it's one you have to see. It's not Francis Ford Coppola's best film, but when your best film is Apocalypse Now, there's no place to go but down.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Any thoughts on Dracula?
Well, I saw it when it came out as well, and I thought Winona Ryder just looked stunning in it. I thought the costumes and scenery were amazing. Mm-hmm. Keanu was cute and innocent, right? Gary Oldman was really spellbinding.
Anthony Hopkins was in the movie too.
Oh, yes, he was. Yeah, it's a good movie. It dragged a little bit. There's a lot of backstory, and which makes sense because Dracula's been alive for 500 years or something. Yeah,
and I think too. I mean, if you think about it, you're talking a 1970s director made a 1970 film and debuted it in the mid 90s.
Right.
In terms of speed, what works for Coppola was not going to work for 90s audiences necessarily, which I felt it dragged too. But it was just a different type of pacing.
Right.
But it's still, again, I recommend people check it out.
Oh, yeah. I think it's worth watching for sure.
Yep. All right, what's your next one?
So my next one is How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Uh-huh.
So another property that Jim Carrey has ruined for me. Amongst the many, but the version I think is best is the original, of course, based on the Dr. Seuss book.
Narrated by Boris Karloff, I believe, right?
Yes, narrated by Boris Karloff, and completely animated.
Yep, directed by Chuck Jones.
The same guy from
Looney Tunes.
Looney Tunes, yeah. So the original version is great. It makes me cry every time I see it. Like, it's very authentic, I think. And then the Jim Carrey later version was live action and was absolutely a stink ball to me. Like, I made myself watch it. I didn't laugh the whole time. I wasn't amused or joyous about anything that was happening.
I mean, I think of that movie, I think of the live-action Cat in the Hat with Mike Myers, and I just thought, why did Hollywood executives think they could get away with making rated PG Dr. Seuss stories? Make a straight adaptation. You can do a live-action and have it be fun and entertaining, but it's not a PG movie, you know, because, like, the Cat in the Hat, Mike Myers was making adult jokes, Jim Carrey was doing his thing, and I hate, you know, hearing backstage interviews with I hated hearing interviews with other actors that worked with him, like, oh, I love it when he just does his thing, and all it is just, like, he riffs, you know, he'll just say line after line after line after line, hoping one is funny, and they're recording them all. You know, so you do see the funny parts, and I'm not saying he's not funny, but just when somebody, someone like him tries too much.
Oh my God, I don't think he's funny at all.
He has his moments with me, but it got old fast. I mean, he's in a lot of ways like Jeff Foxworthy. You know, now having said that, as a drama actor, that's a different story. I think, you know, as an actor overall, he retired apparently, but he had some chops. I mean, if you watch The Truman Show, for instance, I think that, you know, he did end up utilizing his humor in a good way, but he had a very good serious side too. So, yeah, I mean, in The French Love Jerry Lewis, Tim. Okay.
Right. Anyhow, that's my judgment on the Grinch.
All right. Yeah. Fuck you, Jim Carrey. All right. My next one is a story that has been adapted in a few different ways. Originally based off an Akira Kurosawa film, Seven Samurai. The film I chose here was the original 1960 adaptation of The Magnificent Seven. You know, great.
Yeah, we played that in the band. That's the only thing I know about it. Is the song.
It's the story itself has been done many times. Like, we watched A Bug's Life the other day.
Oh yeah,
that's the Magnificent Seven story.
Yeah.
You know, Three Amigos. That's the Magnificent Seven story. It's a small band of, you know, misfits that help protect a weak town against bad guys.
Yeah.
You know, but this had, you know, Yul Brynner, and I still remember the Bill Hicks bit about Yul Brynner and the runner Jim Fix, because apparently Yul Brynner's like, it made a commercial that premiered after he died. You know, I'm Yul Brynner and I'm dead now because I smoke cigarettes. And, you know, Bill brought up the fact that there was a health nut named Jim Fix who was a runner and wrote some books, you know, ended up dying of a heart attack while running. And, you know, he made fun. He was like, I'm Jim Fix and I'm dead now. I worked out, ate right, did everything right, and I still died. Yul Brynner was drinking, smoking, getting blowjobs, and he died of the same damn thing. Fuck. But, yeah, Yul Brynner, we had a young Charles Bronson, you know, in his prime. Most importantly, though, like, this was the film that made the world see Steve McQueen and go, God damn. He's one. I mean, like, he really is the first action star.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, Bullet is widely considered to be, the first, what we consider action movie was Bullet. And, you know, Steve McQueen was the star of that. And, you know, if you've seen him in anything, you know what I mean. Like, you know, I've seen, like, The Towering Inferno. Like, he stood out in that role. You know, Magnificent Seven. He was great in that role. Just, we lost him too soon. Let's put it that way.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Any thoughts on The Magnificent Seven?
Well, you know, there was a film called The Magnificent Seven. Later.
Yeah, it was remade again, and I'm surprised I haven't seen it. I think the director's name was Antoine Fuqua, who did Training Day. It starred Denzel Washington, Chris Pratt, and a few other people. And
I saw that one. It was good.
Yeah, Antoine Fuqua is one hell of a great action director. So I am surprised I haven't seen that. Let's put it that way. I'll put that on my list to watch too.
Yeah, you should.
All right.
Okay.
What's your next one?
My next one is Dune. So originally,
David Lynch classic.
Right, the David Lynch classic. David Lynch often is what we would say back home is his eyes were bigger than his stomach. Like, what he conceived that he could do was not equal to what he had the technological ability to do. Not that other people at that time didn't have it, but he didn't have it. So his version is very small because it couldn't use a lot of special effects. He didn't use a lot of special effects. So it focused on the drama of the story. The new version of Dune, which was a two-parter, which just the second part just came out earlier this year. Gorgeous movie, gorgeous actors, wonderful acting, beautiful cinematography.
Dave Bautista's in it.
Dave Bautista's in it. Anyway, I thought it was really great, the part 1 and part 2 of Dune that just recently came out. So I'm going with that as my favorite of those two remakes.
Do you know why David Lynch accepted the work in Dune?
No.
Because in 1982, he turned down this little movie that ended up being released in 1983 called Return of the Jedi.
Oh, whoa.
And he thought, I could have made a lot of money. And so he ended up accepting Dune, but he has come out in interviews plenty of times since then stating, like, I didn't really get the work. I mean, I guess it wasn't his cup of tea, I guess I should say, not get. I mean, the guy's great with story, let's put it that way. But, there was that. And then the producer of the film is the same guy I talked about when we talked about the Jessica Lange movie. And I see that name of that movie on your list here, so you may be talking about that again. But Dino De Laurentiis ended up producing that movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and as you saw, just he was that type of producer with Dune. Like, De Laurentiis was not the right producer. Like Spielberg possibly could have pulled it off in the 80s just with Industrial Light and Magic, but ILM did not, do the special effects on this movie. And the people that did, just to your point, didn't have the technological capabilities to be able to pull off a tenth of what that story needed. I think, like Marvel Comics, it needed CGI in order to be pulled off. Yeah.
Otherwise, it is about the story. It's not about the beauty or the atmosphere. Or, you're left with the drama, which is how they made superhero movies back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, before CGI, I mean, you had a superhero like Superman who came from another world, but his villain was always a Lex Luthor type. Not always Lex Luthor, but it was a businessman.
Yeah.
Whereas now you could potentially have Brainiac as a villain. You could have Doomsday show up, or what would be great if they did a Superman and Mr. Mxyzptlk film, He's kind of like a Rumpelstiltskin character from the Fifth Dimension, I believe, who will show up and has the abilities to create all kinds of chaotic problems. To illustrate the point, in the cartoon, the character is voiced by Gilbert Gottfried.
Oh,
so,
nice.
I think if it was pulled off in that vein of a comedy, I think that would be an interesting take, and I think that would, could be fun too. But, again, Superman Doomsday, a real Death of Superman movie, oh man, I'd weep.
I'm sure lots of people would, which is probably why they will never do that.
Well, they did in the comics, damn it.
Sorry, dude.
Yeah, well, they resurrected him 6 months later. But anyway, shall I go on with my next
Yes,
one?
please go on with your next one.
Yeah, the next one, we actually did an episode on the remake of this particular one back in our archive, so feel free to go back in the show history and check it out here. 6 years of wacky goodness here. But I'm talking about the original in this particular case, and I've talked about it before, of course, but what else can be said about Psycho? I mean, Alfred Hitchcock essentially put himself in his own personal challenge. He wanted to make a movie, but he challenged himself by making a movie with his television staff from Alfred Hitchcock Presents, not his normal motion picture staff, and filmed it all on television, and on television sound stages.
Oh, wow.
And, but you wouldn't know that based on just, it feels like a big film.
Yeah.
Even though it's set in a small town, but the performances, I mean, Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates, I loved how he played it because Norman was hiding for his mother, not like in the remake with Vince Vaughn, where Vince Vaughn was, hiding the fact that he killed people. I mean, you didn't believe that Vince Vaughn was a separate character from Mother because in the story, spoilers, he has essentially split personality disorder. I don't know what they call it today.
Multiple personality syndrome.
Yes,
like
that. And it is possible with people who do have that for severe cases to, if they switch in their head to the other person, they're a separate being.
Right.
And I think they've even done like studies on people like that to where like brainwaves will end up being different once they switch, to a different person or something like that. But his work as an actor, above all else, if you're going to watch that movie, watch it for his performance. But Janet Leigh too, at the beginning of the film, like, I love her in this movie. I love her in the Orson Welles movie Touch of Evil with Charlton Heston as a Mexican detective. I mean, at the very least, he didn't use an accent, let's put it that way. But, for a black and white film, he had black hair and a black mustache, and I'm Hector Ramirez.
That sounds horrid.
It's a good film, but it's a film of its time, let's put it that way.
Right.
But any thoughts on Psycho?
I find Psycho terrifying. And I found the Vince Vaughn one like a community theater production.
Okay. I mean, I
like
agree.
it was on a theater stage. Like there were theater style backdrops. It was all like one shot, like you were watching theater. Mm-hmm. Right?
I mean, he was trying to mimic what Hitchcock did, but Gus Van Sant is not Hitchcock. Now, Gus Van Sant is a great director. Don't get me wrong. I mean, for Good Will Hunting alone, my goodness, but he is not Hitchcock. I think he would be the first to say that. He did this as an experiment more than anything else. I mean, it was because of Good Will Hunting that he had the ability to do this. But, I just wish he had taken the story and kind of did it in his own way. Like other remakes, there was a Chris Rock movie, Down to Earth, in the early 2000s, which was a remake of the Warren Beatty movie, Heaven Can Wait. Same idea, but Chris Rock did his own thing with it. I mean, neither are classics, but you know what I mean. I just wish he had done that and then tried to do this quote-unquote shot-for-shot remake. But, if you watch anything, watch the original. It is an absolute classic.
Oh, definitely.
And the shower scene music, yeah, great. All right.
So awful.
What's your last choice? Or your next choice?
My next choice is King Kong. So there have been many versions of King Kong, of course. I'm speaking of the version with Jessica Lange that we talked about a little bit last week.
And this week.
It's a great movie. I like it. Obviously, I've talked about it before. The new version is like poo. It's not good. And it has Jack Black in it, which would make it seem like I should like it. But it's Jack Black in a drama role, which I just can never get into.
He's he's no John Belushi. I mean, John Belushi did one role, and I forgot the name of the movie, but it didn't do well. But I saw it and thought he did really damn good in it. Of him as a reporter out, and it was a romantic comedy. You know, and if I remember it, I'll bring it up at some point, I guess. But you know, Jack Black is a force of nature. Jack Black is like Keanu Reeves or Clint Eastwood. He's good for Jack Black type of roles,
Right.
you know. And sometimes it sucks being typecast, but you know, if you're really damn good at something, make a lot of money at it. You know.
Right, and I don't think Jack Black is hurting for money, certainly.
Exactly. I'm not a huge Peter Jackson fan. I know when, like, the Get Back documentary came out, at first I was like, it's Peter Jackson, it's going to be 47,000 hours long. And it was long, but it worked for that. You know, I wasn't a fan of what he did with The Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. Having said that, that was just my... it was not my taste. That's all. I'm not knocking, you know, the artistry behind what he did. You know, and if anything, I'm glad he was able to get those films on the big screen and open up Tolkien to a new audience that may not have sought out those books. So just because I'm not a fan of the movies doesn't mean I don't respect it. But he does have a tendency of going long.
He does have that tendency, and you know, I loved all the Lord of the Rings books, and I loved the movies, and like with the Harry Potter movies before J.K. Rowling just outed herself as a huge turf. We know that the Harry Potter books and movies were also very exciting for me around the same time. Like sort of law school and right after law school, those movies were coming out, and it was just always a big celebration when one of them came out.
Yep. Escapism is fun, folks.
Yep.
All right, shall I go on with my last one?
Isn't it my turn?
No, you just wrapped up your turn, unless you have more to say about King Kong.
Oh, no. I don't have anything else to say about King Kong. Right, we were talking about Jack Black. That's what...
Yeah. Do I have permission to go on?
Yes, please do go on.
Okay. Are you familiar with Thomas Harris?
Thomas Harris.
An author. He wrote... His most famous book is The Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, well, I'm familiar with that.
Yes, well... The Silence of the Lambs is actually a sequel. Technically, his work is like a lot of authors. It's set in a world, but you know, his first book, he created this interesting character that really intrigued him, but wasn't a part of the story in a big way. It was a very minor character. That character was Hannibal Lecter, and that story was Red Dragon.
Okay.
And I'm not talking about the Red Dragon movie that came out in the mid-2000s, directed by a horrible scumbag human being, Brett Ratner, and just an awful, awful movie. I'm talking about the first movie that featured the Hannibal Lecter character, and that was not Silence of the Lambs. That was in 1987, written and maybe not written, but I know directed by Michael Mann, who was the main creative force behind Miami Vice. Ended up directing the movies like Heat, the Ali biopic, the Miami Vice movie. But this movie was a movie called Manhunter. It starred, and I forgot the actor's name, but you ever watch CSI?
No.
Okay. It was the star of CSI was in this movie, and just Michael Mann knows how to direct these types of movies. It was real intense from first to last. It was nothing like Silence of the Lambs in any way, shape, or form. And like I said, Hannibal Lecter is in it, but played by Brian Cox, and it is just a very it's a minor role and a much different take compared to what we ended up seeing. But the ending of the movie was famous because similar to the Silence of the Lambs, it's the good guy cop going after the bad guy, and they have their final battle. well. And, you know, and I think it's become cliche because of this movie, but it started doing weird camera angles, different lighting, and then playing Inagata Devita as the, you know, the hero and the killer, like, face off in battle. And, yeah, I mean, if... This is much superior to the remake Red Dragon, and the remake Red Dragon, sadly enough, had Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter, and was written by the guy who wrote the original script for The Silence of the Lambs, but they just had to get that fucker Brett Ratner to direct that movie. I mean, just, my God, what a horrible human being. Anyway.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah. But knowing your taste in movies, I know you've not seen Silence of the Lambs. Maybe you've seen Silence of the Lambs.
I've seen Silence of the Lambs. I saw it when it first came out. I never watched it again after that.
Yeah. And, yeah, this is not be a movie you would particularly care for in terms of enjoyment. But, you know, if you've seen Silence of the Lambs and have not seen Manhunter yet, do yourself a favor, check it out.
Cool.
All right,
my last one is Pride and Prejudice. So there have been many, many versions of this as well. And my favorite is the one with Keira Knightley in it that was in the mid-2000s, like 2010s maybe. Mm-hmm. Maybe. I don't remember. But fairly recently compared to the BBC version, which was its most close in time predecessor.
Yeah.
That is the one that had Colin Firth in it, the BBC version. Ooh. And the Colin Firth scene where he jumps in the pond and he has a white shirt on and he comes up out of the pond.
You see his nipples.
You can see his nipples and his six-pack, and he's like super hot. This one is even better, and I think that it really shows off the character of Eliza Bennett in a better way. Like, I think in the BBC version, it was always like, why does anybody care about her? Like, the acting just was kind of stiff, like very theater actress-y kind of. And I find the newer version of Pride and Prejudice was just so more naturalistic, and I really loved it. Like, you saw the pigs walking through, you saw the muck on the bottom of their skirts. Like, it was very visually rich with character.
Any explosions?
Not a single one.
Damn.
No.
Okay.
It's a really good movie, though. You should watch it.
I mean, you got me to watch Little Women in theaters, so maybe someday.
It's true.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there.
Okay, sounds good.
Now, any thoughts on remakes in general?
I think remakes are good. I think it's good for there to be a second take on things. Second, third, fourth take on things.
Yeah, I mean, that's how ideas are formed, really. I mean, you know, like, we've culturally kind of been stifled in this country for the past century because of people like Sonny Bono, the bastard, you know, getting the copyright extended to where, you know, the person who owns the copyright, you know, even after they die, it expires like 95 years or something after they die, which is an obscene long time because ideas are created based on older ideas. There is no such thing as an original idea.
Right, Shakespeare said that.
Yeah. Fuck, I said it for now. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I am, in theory, not against remakes whatsoever, but Hollywood has shown, especially over the past decade, that, you know, when you have studio executives that are more concerned about the bottom line and view a movie or a TV show or something like that as a commodity, like bread, like lumber, like a car or something like that, you know, it kind of ruins the whole experience. Mm-hmm. You know, like, take a look at the Ghostbusters 2016 movie that starred the women. You know, they brought it back, and by making it a complete remake as if the original didn't exist, it immediately turned the fans. Mm-hmm. some went extremely overboard and they should all be ashamed of themselves. But, overall, though, you just had a cynical company that was just like, this is a commodity we can still make some money off of, so let's put it out without a thought as the proper way to put it out to... Thanks, Annie. Wrap it up. To think about, hey, what can we do to make the current fans happy while doing what we can to expand that base?
So it was really cute. Annie just jumped, sort of stood up on her hind legs and touched Tim through, this little hole in the chair, right? To just sort of be like, stop talking. Stop talking. It's time to go.
All right. So we will listen to Annie, folks, and bid you all adieu. Each Monday, we'll have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
Farewell.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.